Hello, Mcluvin News. So, I'm not a teacher, but I am a teacher of an educator of driving. I'm not a teacher in the academic school system. I don't work with kids who are learning from the early ages. But for a message for the kids, from the adults from now, and completely G-rated family guidance approval, remember this, kids. Remember this, families, because I speak now as a special message to just kids, just the adults, all the ones and every one of us that grew up as a kid, have a kid in our heart. I've got a kid in my heart, in my soul. I still have problems affecting me as a child from my time. I didn't know what I was getting into when I was born into this world from two loving people who, sadly, on my dad's side, made some mistakes, and I ended up having to be put up for private adoption because my biological mother proven to be unfit. To this day, since the time and what happened in that past, I have no connection with her. And there's a reason for that. Neither me or my sister. I was the only boy of my family. My dad really wanted to have a son. Old school, you can talk about this. Old school, every man, as you know, that gets with a woman in the old style, if you're going to try to misogynously classify a man who's trying to have a kid, trying to have a child, he was the fitting, perfect description of a man who just wanted to have a son. But he didn't do it out of selfish desires. He did it because it was just how he was raised. That's who he was. I can't judge him for that. And if it wasn't for him and his actions, I wouldn't have come into this world. I wouldn't be here today to have walked the life that I have, to have learned what I've learned, and to know that the most important impact you can learn is getting empathy and the powerful message, kids, from your family members, from your old people, from everybody, even if you don't agree with them, even in family where we all agree, you can't change family, you can't change blood. That's a fact. That is a fact. And this awakening, this is what's going on in this country, is that Donald Trump opened a door that we can't hate him for it. We don't give him the power like he's some king or dictator. He is certainly not. But we must not divide. Not based on Donald Trump's only message of bringing unity. The question is, what is he saying when he says that? Let's think about that. Let's hold him accountable for that. We'll see what he brings to our new America. But we cannot divide because people voted for Trump and people voted for Kamala. I'm a Kamala Harris supporter. I've always leaned a little bit more democratically, but I'm not a hypocrite because I know the Democrats have been way too aligned with the rich and the powerful. They haven't answered the call of those most upset in this country, those who felt like their voices haven't been heard, those who felt like, apart from all the messaging and the rhetoric coming from the Republican, that would be the RNC and the DNC, both parties have been polarizing each other against each other for years and years and years, for decades, for hundreds. Actually, you could pretty much start off from like early 2001, and even before that, back to the 80s, okay? It's been polarized. You can look through history. Do an educational tidbit, kids and family members. Look back at history. We have a chance to change the future. Independence, and I'm an independent. I'm a libertarian. And if you don't know libertarian, again, I'll say it for the record, a person who supports limited government. That's right, limited government, not codependency on government. That may be something most people are a little afraid of expecting, but that's because the system has been working against the foundation of the principles of what this country was built around by our founding fathers. They never had an intention to be put into the news, to put to comparison of what they would think, what they would do, because that's not what they set this country to be. They set this country to walk the founding principles of what we could take the leadership of their wisdom. And you kids who learned history, if you haven't learned this enough, learn it again, re-look at history, relearn and read a biography. Don't trust autobiographies, those are a little bit more biased. Read a biography and learn about the principles of history. Learn up some documentary videos of what the meaning of the principle means to have the highest title in the land, Commander-in-Chief, President of the United States, leader of the free world. You know, we need to really start to think about uniting. Uniting not just on the fact of political indifference, but on humanity, accountability, and responsibility to our kids and our generations. Because you kids, I am fighting that message. I just joined the Villains Guild on TikTok, and I like what they're sharing. It's not going to be kid-friendly with the curse words and the language, but from just a few videos I've watched, powerful, invigorating, passionate, people screaming out the logical stuff you don't see on far right or far left TV. And that's fine. That's good. We don't need to always watch a polarization of one side. But on a couple of the videos that I've gotten to, I want to make an important special shout out to Villains Guild. I am starting a new front about unity in an independent party, which stands for a factor of true unity. We can't judge our fellow Trump supporters, the nearly 5 million of them that voted for Trump, whether they're independent, Republican, whether they don't want to be heard, they're quiet and silent, or even on the left, where now we've got this resistance. That's right, the resistance is growing, and I have already called this out. It is dangerous. The resistance is dangerous. The idea of saying that we're resisting, rebelling, in this climate where all emotions are high and there's such great division that has already been pivoted between history, we can't double down and go backwards. When Donald Trump said, we're not going back, let's unite, there is a positive message in his message. Not because I'm a Trump supporter. I am not in a shell, okay? I'm not in some cloud. I'm on the outside, looking at everybody else. And I've questioned myself, I've challenged myself, I have crossed myself through certain journeys in life that most people would look at me and wonder why I've made certain choices, why I've done certain things. I have to agree in my heart with my hereditary high blood pressure and my fight to try to keep my weight under check, because most people don't look at me and say, why is this guy worrying about his weight and his health? Well, it's because there's a reality of this world. A reality that everyone's fighting for themselves, fighting to keep together, to unite, to take care of their families and their loved ones, so they don't feel the obligation to put themselves out and take a risk and a limb. And that's fine. Some people don't have to be put out there to do the hard work. Some people don't need to. Sometimes people are working behind the scenes doing the good fight. And those are the people that don't get heard, don't get talked about. You don't see them getting reported on enough. And I'm supporting that fight to get those people alerted and awakened. Because with our climate, the earth, and the impending risk and the weight of responsibility that is on us, the little people, the independent people, the unions even, those who are fighting for the fellow man, the hardworking independents, and the fellow union labor workers, I found a wonderful artist that has awakened some part of something inside of me, even though I'm not a hardened Democrat, hardened Republican. I am an independent, and I'm proud to be that. The core issue of where we talk about the issue of the real truth behind the struggle of everyday American lives, the oligarchs have been running the show for a long time. They're not afraid. They know who they are. We know who they are. There's Elon Musk, there's Jeff Bezos, there's many, many more. I mean, you can talk about Bill Gates, he created Microsoft. But, each independent, rich, wealthy person out there, they're not all working against us. A lot of them are doing what they can to try to cover their tracks, build a history, make amends for whatever they haven't accomplished, trying to do right. And I've said this before in a written piece of work. That's all we really can do. Try to make the best of what we got with what we have at our own hands and live our lives in peace and harmony and try to do what we can. But not all of them have been in peace and harmony with the world. And the same thing with the fight for the kids and who's representing that cause and who stands behind that. I know Kamala Harris was a better option, but not the lesser of two evils. She was the only other option that I could stand for the kids, for her clean track history as a prosecutor, fighting against criminals and injustice. I knew she would be the one for America. But Donald Trump also, you got to give him a little bit of credit here. He's not afraid to admit that he is not perfect, that he is a dumpster fire. And that comment I won't claim is the truth of only what I've unveiled, but other people have unveiled. That is true. Donald Trump is a dumpster fire. He knows the fires he's creating and the burning and the mess and the disaster he's created for himself. There's no question about that. So the real truth, the real power that we have in this country is our voices. If your voice hasn't been heard, if you're not following that movement, if you're not a part of that leading front, this is your chance. Even you who didn't vote, who didn't speak, who didn't talk up, you have a chance to truly, absolutely, truly be a part of something bigger than yourself. And I want you to feel empowered by that. That's what I'm standing for. Not because I don't have my own tattered history. And where do I say off my credentials? I'm an educator. I'm still a certified driving instructor. I still stand by my analogy that people don't always walk the way they drive, and they don't drive always the way they walk. The reality is, I've been on a different light. You could call me being awakened since this election. I was there when Donald Trump's victory was called. I almost had a dark moment of recollection of where the spirits inside me were driving me to be completely against the verdict of America, like a lot of other people. And I understand why. But this isn't just about Trump. You need to remember that. It's not just about Trump. Don't make this about just him. The very thought that we would focus so much of our focus on media on just about Trump takes away from the integrity of what I'm talking about fighting for the kids and the generations and the bigger picture. Donald Trump likes to talk about himself and do what he wants to do. That's what he wants to do. He wants to put himself out there. We'll be the judge. We, the American people, will be the judge when we have our voices out there and where we're heard. That's where the real power comes from. We the people. There's a deep meaning behind that. It's not just we the people who voted for MAGA and Donald Trump. It's also we the people who voted for Kamala Harris. And don't forget the people who also voted for freedom, justice, our Constitution. Those people who didn't make that choice because they wanted to, but because they had to. That's a true fact of where division from the two-party system has pushed us, where the media, where the oligarchs, where the powerful influences of money and power have pushed our election and our human emotions, our instinctual willpower based on the fear of money, our freedom of liberty, our rights, our bodies, our control. This is a reality that we live with every day. And I'm proud to be saying that I stand for the unity, the true unity, to cut out the division, stop the hate. If I haven't repeated it enough in this video, imagine me saying it every 10 seconds. End the hate, end the hate. And I mean it, end the hate, end the division. The division is how this all became the way it is. And thankfully for it, now we have a chance to move forward. But if we're gonna keep moving with hate and division, we gotta remember the annals of history to not repeat the mistakes of our past. And the same thing with the factor that ignorance is not bliss. I have been awake since about 3 o'clock this morning. I just ate around 4. And I love the people at my local Waffle House, which I ate at. I haven't been able to enjoy eating out a lot because, quite frankly, I've been doing my own personal cycle of trying to do better for myself, for my heart, my blood pressure, my diet, and try not to get stressed. That's why I don't engage in combative situations. That's why I don't fight. That's why I don't pick fights where I shouldn't fight, and where the fight I'm taking to for the truth and the heartfelt. As we can't even forget, yesterday was the only day that we had that was 11-11-11. There was 2 different points of that. I wish I made a video for that and a special announcement, but that announcement's coming today about me talking about the motivation of what I'm referring to, about holding full accountability to our elected leaders and those who represent our country and who stand for us, and the ones who don't, who are in Congress. You need to urge your parents, urge your family to find leaders who truly speak on the focus group of what matters for us at home with our families, for you. No matter who you are, foster kid, young child, youthful child, adopted child, whether you were an adopted child and you're no longer a child anymore and you're a grown man or a grown woman, whether you're a transgender person who people hate on and discriminate and look at differently. Now, if you're a transgender person and you don't push your ideals, you don't push the rights of who has the right to use which bathroom, then you're on the right side of history. But if you're pushing a different ideology that people have to change for you, that's like a religion. There's a reason why we don't talk about these topics. But even Christians and Baptists, even Presbyterians, even those who are, and I just saw Jack Smith, the leader of the special counsel, has been working against Trump. He's planning on stepping down. So it is actually more paramount now than ever, but that's a high integrity level for Jack Smith to step down, regardless whether he's guilty, done wrong, pursued a bias. Okay, is what it is. I'll cover that in the next short. Simple as that is. Whatever the reason is, we'll get to the truth. There's no reason to blow it out of proportion. Here's the real power, empowering message. Kids, families, foster kids, adults, everybody. If we are not holding our leaders accountable, then we are accepting the fact that we are going to allow a replacement of a single entity within MAGA, the side that believes in conservatism, division, which is no better than the old two-party system. That's what we want in this country. I think not, because there's too much hate against those who are in MAGA, and I've seen it. And I'm not a MAGA supporter. I'm not a Trump supporter. I've seen the hate and the division, but many of the MAGA supporters didn't get their voices heard, and that's why Donald Trump got the one up. That's why. That's the reality. Not just that, but also that the two-party system and the division gave the door open to MAGA to embrace the same type, but a different rhetoric to answer those voices who felt like they weren't getting heard, including independents and African Americans, and just Americans. Just call them Americans. Not even African Americans, just Americans. Americans regardless of their ethnicity. They're all Americans. And I stand by that. Let's not put labels on people. We got to really work on not doing that. And it's not about being politically woke or wokeness, whether a wokeness or a correctness or even woke is a part of that. Those causes and movements all have justifications, whether or not they're always right. The PCP bros, the PCP girls, there should be a group for the girls. They should exist. There should be PCP for everybody. Political correctness, sure. It's a good function to think about the reality of what we're dealing with, because the bigger message is bigger than us for the fact of our kids and our present. Mcluvin News, I stand by this. Without the present, there is no future. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. I'm proud to say this. And I am embracing what is coming in 2025 and onward. And yes, we do have a lot of accountability to answer for. Supreme Court justices are actually taking on a serious case of Donald Trump's highest administration, counsel, and those who have been affected from the 2016 through 2020 election. They're actually answering a serious call that I just learned from watching a news article from earlier this morning. And you can look at it yourself. They are actually going to be charging and answering an accountability charge that they should be based on the law and the principle, not over political loyalty. And some of those cabinet picks are Trump's picks. Some of them are not. There are a lot of people who have their indifferences to those cabinet picks. Even I do. And thankfully, they're starting to answer the reality that the United States law comes before loyalty and party. And the same thing goes with people and their vote. We have to remember that the loyalty lies with the generations and the principle of what we teach for our kids and our generations on the fundamentals of what this country was built for, what veterans have died for, what people have given their life for, and independent journalism and truth and people fighting the good fight. That's the true message. And that, in definition, I stand by channels and people who fight that good fight. And even if you find people who use curse words in their channels, in their education, in their focus, don't shun them on this. Curse words and bad language does not define somebody as being less educated. They're colorful. They're out there. If you're under 18, you shouldn't be watching them. If you are, that's on you, and you need to understand something. That's why I exist. That's why I've come out, because there is people that hold that good credibility regardless of their mouth and language, even on the far right and the far left. Some of them have good credibility. For those who don't, they'll get called out. They'll answer for their wrongdoings. And that's all I've got to say. Mcluvin News, we hold them accountable for the kids, for the generations, for a better present today. Without the present, there is no future. Thanks for watching Mcluvin News.